Um, let's see.
Welcome to the deep dive, where we really try to get to the heart of what's shaping your world. And today, we're plunging headfirst into something that isn't just theory anymore. It's actively reshaping legal careers right across South Africa. We're talking about artificial intelligence, AI in the legal.
Mm,
Welcome to the deep dive, where we really try to get to the heart of what's.
mm. Okay. Is this better as audio? Let's hope it's better. This has not been a nice show. Not at all. Cool. So we're back on. Hopefully with some success this time. Not sure what is happening with YouTube and this whole stream vibe today. Um, Everything sounds well from my side. I'm not sure who's even in the chat because the thing is not showing me. So whoever you are, if you could just give me a nudge or a hint, whatever it is, just say hello. You can even just type your name or anything. Mm. Oh, hello, goodness. How's the audio now? Please tell me. Good. Are you sure it's good, or are you just being good? Thank you, Takalo. And I'm so sorry. I know this is your first time tuning in, and obviously you might have somewhere to be. I really treat these shows seriously. So on my part, I really apologize for all the technical difficulties. The people that have been here from day one will tell you, it's always technical difficulties, but we are a small team. In fact, if one man could be called a team, that's the only way we're even a small team. So thank you if it's better. On a scale of 1 to 10, because I think better is relative. So how good is better? Oh, really? So I thought you said this is your first. I swear, if I hadn't deleted the previous live because it was horrible, I would go back and check the chat files. I really thought this was your first time. So okay, I guess the show is not dedicated to you anymore because that was the whole thing with the last one, that it's dedicated to you because it's your first time. But if it's not your first time, then it's no longer dedicated to you. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. Cool. So I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be joining, but I'm not even against presenting to two people. So if there's only two people in this live, we're still going to do this. And I think maybe it might even help for focus and interaction. Let's treat this as what I intended it to be in the first place, an interactive and innovative show, not just a presentation of, oh, this is the type of AI models that exist. I'm really trying to make it lively and as youthful as possible. So thank you very much. And let me just copy the link so that I can share it to more people and then we can disappoint more people. I'm joking. That's a bad joke, but I'm joking. And if you have a friend that perhaps had joined, but they were like, oh no, this is taking too long, please send them this link for joining. I'm also going to do the same this side. And then we're going to have everybody back again. Let's delete this one. Cool. Now that you guys can hear me, I can finally do what I wanted to do. And it's actually going to be worth the wait. I promise you. So, make that black. I actually feel like an old person with all these technological issues because for the impressive stuff I've done, this is not doing justice to my work. So, now that you guys can hear me, I'm going to show you what I was talking about, right? So the premise of the show, well, not the premise. The whole title of the show is obviously us trying to wrap our head around AI. And what I had said in the previous live before, obviously, that Shiga happened was that this is a platform called Notebook LM. It's by Google. So it essentially allows you to log in, and it's free from my recollection. Like if it's not free, then I don't even remember ever paying. But essentially, it allows you to log in, and you can upload a file, you can upload an audio, you can upload an actual text that you've copied from somewhere. So you can just imagine if you have a PDF that's got like notes, or perhaps you've got an actual case that you've downloaded from Safely, any text or file that you can obtain, and if it's allowed to be uploaded there, you can essentially upload it, and their AI will essentially turn that into a podcast for you. Not sure if they want you to call it a podcast, but it's essentially an interactive chat between two people. It's very, very human like. It's very, very impressive. And for you guys, what I had decided to do was take all the research that I've done on AI, and instead of just sitting here and just yabbing, I'm going to make it a bit more interactive. So the two people or AI people that are essentially in this whole chat are going to be discussing my research. It's not anything new, honestly. It's just what I was able to collect in order to effectively show you guys what's happening in the legal world, what has happened before, and perhaps how you guys will find it once you start practicing. So I took the file, I uploaded it, they converted it into a 31-minute audio file. Hopefully, I don't post too much, that way we can get through it quicker. And essentially, the whole gist of it was that I'd like you guys to see the power of what current AI systems can enable us to do as practitioners and as students. And through this, you guys will be able to not only learn about the content of what's happening, but also see the practical applicability of these tools. It's not going to be everything that's out there in the market, obviously, but what I will do for everybody that's joining, by the end of the session, I'm actually gonna literally collect all your email addresses and essentially send you guys a whole list, a pack of the AI tools that I was able to find that are super relevant for students. I would say they're not just for law students, because a lot of them, it's just getting around the work. It's literally productivity tools that enable you to process information faster, summarize information better, sort information in a more organized way. That way, obviously, your law school experience is not as hectic as somebody that was studying in 1999 and they still had to carry a whole file and a whole book full of notes and everything. So if you think that sounds interesting, yeah, give me a one in the chat. I know there's only 3 people, and 2 of you guys haven't liked the chat. I'm not gonna hold it against you since everything that happened in the previous live that I tried to do. But if you would be so kind, please. And then I'm just gonna jump into this, and I'm gonna play the file, and then I'm gonna pause from here and there just to give you guys my own perspective or my own comments for it. I know you guys said the audio is good, but now I'm paranoid and I'm like, is it really good? Is it not good? And also, if you know anybody that should be joining the live, or you're part of any law students group chat, please send the link. Let them know that we're live and we're trying to make it fun. Tell them that all the technical issues have finished. Now we're cruising. Tell them that we're fine now. I've even taken that video because YouTube wants you to post the live after. Deleted it. It's never supposed to see the light of day. But thank you very much, Simanye, Goodness, Takalo. If it's just the 3 of us, I'll actually enjoy it a bit more. I think it's gonna lessen the pressure for me. I'm gonna be a bit more relaxed, and maybe that might make for a better show for you guys. But I really appreciate your time and your consistency in coming. Again, I try not to make it all laughs and giggles when I'm out here. I try to make it very informative for you guys. That way you have something to take away from it. So I'm going to start playing the audio. Now it's no longer on my laptop, so I no longer need to worry about whether it's playing or not. It's just if it's audible or not. So I'm just going to play it, and then you guys can let me know how it sounds and if you can hear it. I'm going to play it for like a minute, and then if you can hear it, you can just say, yeah, I can hear it. If you can't hear it, object. So we are going to play it now.
Welcome to the deep dive, where we really try to get to the heart of what's shaping your world. And today, we're plunging headfirst into something that isn't just theory anymore. It's actively reshaping legal careers right across South Africa. We're talking about artificial intelligence, AI in the legal field. And trust me, this isn't sci-fi anymore. It's your professional reality happening right now.
That's absolutely right.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay,
And
that's
just to give you a
good.
sense of how
How does it
immediate this is,
sound? Does it
think about
sound
this.
human-like?
Major
Does it
South
sound
African
like it
law
was
firms
made using
are already using
AI?
AI
What's
tools.
happening?
And they're saving up to 50% of their time on certain tasks. 50%.
Wow, 50%.
Imagine cutting those all-nighters in half while actually improving the quality of your work. Think what that could mean for your career. It's not just about speed. It's a fundamental shift in how legal professionals are going to operate.
Okay, yeah, that statistic alone is a real wake-up call. So for this deep dive into AI in South African law, our mission is,
We're
to
up.
distill the essentials. We're drawing from excerpts of an
Thank you,
extended
thank
dialogue
you.
for law students. We really want to give you a foundational, practical understanding.
Exactly. So by the end of this, you'll have a much better handle on what AI actually is, how it's being used in SA law firms today, the critical challenges, the things you must know about, and maybe most importantly, the huge opportunities it offers you as a future legal pro. Expect some moments, definitely some practical insights.
Great. So let's start right at the beginning then. When we talk about artificial intelligence, AI, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, think of AI as computer systems,
Yeah.
designed to do tasks that normally need human intelligence. Things like learning, reasoning, solving problems, even creativity to some extent. But the really key thing here is that AI isn't just one thing. It's more like the word transportation. It's a broad category, covers everything from a bicycle to a rocket ship.
That's a really helpful analogy. Okay. So what are the different types of AI, the different kinds of transport?
Okay, wait, before we go into the different types of AI, here's a challenge for you guys watching this, and I'd really like you guys to employ this. Throughout this whole talk, as much as it's human-like, as much as it sounds like a talk show, as much as it's impressive, there's going to be a lot of tells that this is actually AI. Some of it, you'll just have that gut feeling that it doesn't really sound natural. Some of it is going to be obvious. You're going to be like, whoa, okay. First things first, and I think this is important to mention, right? Because of how advanced AI is, it still lacks a lot of context. And what you'll notice here is that this whole chat is based on notes or information that I gave the model. First things first that you'll notice is that the two people that are speaking have an American accent. It's not a South African or just other type of accent. And this is one of the actual limitations, because if you have the guys that are the masterminds behind this whole thing creating it, it's more likely that they're going to be drawing from their own ecosystem. They're going to be drawing from talk shows from their own country to teach the model. They're going to teach the model how to speak, where to pause, the cadence that it should adopt, and everything in between. But because they can't just go out and teach it about the whole world, then you're not going to have a talk show that sounds South African. So throughout this whole thing, I'd really like you guys to just try and spot each and every instance where you're like, okay, now I can tell that this whole thing is AI. But for context as to why it even sounds American, that's literally it. It's trained on American talk show, American cadence, American people speaking. Maybe once they've, like, I don't know, invested some time and some effort into other countries, you might have one that sounds South African. But even that would take a lot of time. They'd have to know how Carol, Bonang, Robert Marawa, whoever it is, like, they have to really understand how each and every person from each culture speaks, and maybe even adopt other languages. This is only available in English for now. I know you're thinking, what's that got to do with law? When we get into the part where we speak about hallucinations and everything, a big talking point for you trying to get a case, and then the AI system gives you a case from America, it's going to be if that AI chat model or platform is trained on American law, or if it draws a lot of its information from American law or American jurisdictions or other jurisdictions, then whenever you ask it a question, you need a South African answer. You need an answer that's authoritative and persuasive to South African courts because it's relevant to our jurisdiction and our laws. If it can't find that, it's looking for the next big thing. And if it finds that somewhere else, it's going to bring it to you. Now, it might be creative in how it packages it. It might even give it a case name that sounds South African. But I think just when you're listening to this, have that context in mind that, oh, damn, I'm listening to something impressive, but what are the tells that it's actually not human created? Cool. I'm going to continue with this. That way I don't blab a lot. If you're still here and you still actually engage, you don't have any questions, you can just put a 1 in the chat and I'll continue.
That we're actually encountering.
Okay, so the main type we use right now, pretty much everywhere, is artificial narrow intelligence or weak AI. Imagine like that brilliant colleague who's amazing at one specific thing, say spotting every tricky clause in a contract in like minutes, phenomenal. But ask them to do anything else, anything outside that narrow specialty, completely lost.
Okay.
That's narrow AI. And most current legal AI tools, they fit this description. They're like a team of super specialized experts. Each one nails their specific job contract review, transcribing depositions, case law research. They're incredibly efficient in their lane, but they don't step outside of it.
Right. They stick to their knitting, so to speak. And what about the AI we see in the movies, the thinking robots? Yeah. That would be artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That's still very much science fiction territory. We're talking AI that could match human cognitive abilities across all tasks, like an AI lawyer interviewing clients, arguing in court, drafting laws, doing everything a human partner could.
Yeah.
We are nowhere near that. And honestly, that's probably good news for your career prospects.
Yeah, I can definitely see why. Okay, now for something that feels very current, very immediate, generative AI. This is what everyone's buzzing about, tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Google's Bard. How did these fit in?
Right. Generative AI. This is the exciting frontier, really, because it can create original content. It can draft documents, answer complex legal questions, summarize massive cases. It can even hold surprisingly sophisticated conversations. Think of it like having this tireless research assistant, okay? Writes incredibly well, and it's read more legal documents than you could in 10 lifetimes.
Sounds amazing, right?
It does sound amazing, but I sense a but coming.
There's a huge but, a critical one. You have to internalize this. This amazing assistant can, with absolute total confidence, tell you things that are completely undeniably wrong, false.
Oh.
And it sounds so convincing, so plausible, you might not even realize it's wrong until it's way too late.
Okay, that's a pretty stark warning. Now, before this whole wave of modern AI really took off, what were the foundational technologies already kind of digitizing law firms, setting the stage?
Yeah.
Okay, now, so what they were just speaking about was this whole idea behind you have a system that's very well trained, very capable, but sometimes it actually is devoid of context, or sometimes it just doesn't have the information. But because it's super smart and because it has this inclination to give you answers, it essentially comes back and gives you the wrong answer. It's sometimes not even the wrong answer, especially within law, right? It's not the wrong answer in that what it says it's wrong. It's the wrong answer in that it's not the required answer. So if it comes to you and it says, hey, look, you asked me to look for a case that says self-defense is permissible in these particular circumstances. If it doesn't find that case, it could literally process reasons why self-defense would be permissible in that context. It would literally draw from all its knowledge, all its training, and all its capabilities, give you a correct answer. But remember, when you're going to court, you're not just looking for a correct answer. You're looking for precedence. You're looking for an answer that was given by courts, an answer that is acceptable to a bench of judges or to just one judge because it has authoritative value, not just persuasive value. So in a sense, it could end up giving you persuasive value, and then it will give you a fake name because obviously the format that you expect this persuasive answer in is in the form of a case. And now you have your answer, you have your case name, but you do not have everything that the legal system requires to be built into that answer. Is that answer one that was given by a particular court in a case that was presented by lawyers and tested in an actual legal forum? And so that's what they were just speaking about in terms of this thing is very powerful, especially when it comes to language. I think with other features, such as images, it's even easier to see, where you give it a prompt, you ask it, hey, can you make this image for me? And it comes back and the person has 4 fingers. And now it's easy to tell because in its head, you just want someone with a hand. And maybe it forgot that a hand has to have 5 fingers. Obviously, a normal, usual hand would have 5 fingers, but it wouldn't be thinking about, okay, in the most accurate sense, this is what the person wants. It would be thinking about the broader intention of what you're expecting, which is an image with 3 people sometimes. The tools have been getting better, and that's what we're going to be trying to dive into now with essentially where does the legal system come from with all these tools? What did they have before AI? Some of these things, obviously, you might know. I mean, we all know they had to use papers first and then had to use typewriters and then had to migrate to Microsoft Word and such. So we're going to just be seeing a bit of the other technologies that were in place, and that's this segment right here. Again, if you know anybody that should be here but isn't here, please send them the link, tell them that we're live, and it'd be nice to have them here. So let's continue. And essentially, it's going to touch on 1, 2, 3 buckets. I'm still not certain how I can move myself here. That way, I don't hide this other bucket with the 2010s. But I mean, if you listen attentively, you'll be able to get the idea of what exactly is going on with that one.
That's a really key point. Law firms weren't starting from zero, not at all. They were already well into digitizing their workflows. Think about electronic discovery or e-discovery. Before the 90s, you had junior lawyers literally spending weeks, months maybe, in warehouses, physically sifting through hundreds of thousands of paper documents for litigation.
Wow, I can't even imagine that.
It was expensive, incredibly slow, and frankly, mind-numbingly dull work.
So how did
Whoop. With this, actually, one of my former bosses once told me that when they were starting out in M&A, I don't know how long this was. I mean, I'm imagining it's either late 90s or early 2000s. Essentially, they would do due diligence where one company is trying to buy another company. It has to vet the affairs of the other company. They have to look at all the contracts. They have to look at all the policies that are in place. They have to look at other documents, everything that comprises that business they're trying to buy. And to do that, they obviously have to go through those documents. And he was speaking about how with them, they'd be locked up in this warehouse where they'd be like all these boxes of documents, and they'd go there with like their notepads and everything, and they'd essentially just go through each and every box, essentially moving boxes from this side to that side. And when they're doing that, you review the document, you write down your notes if you found anything that's relevant or required to be reported on, and then you move it to the side. And essentially, you'd have a large room where maybe for a whole week, that's all you're doing. You're just going into this room and writing all these things. And you have to keep all your notes very, very well, keep them safe. That way, when you go back to your boss, you can now report on everything and they can include it in the main report or whatnot. And just to give you guys perspective of how much things have changed since then, I never had to see that. I do remember having colleagues that had to do that as part of this other matter, but that was just because the client in that matter was sensitive. It wasn't because they lacked the technology. When I started out in M&A, we had something called data rooms, and data rooms are essentially picture Google Drive, but if Google Drive was specifically created just for reviewing documents. And there's a lot of data room service providers that are out there. They all, compete with the features they offer, the prices that law firms can, access their technology with. And some of the nicest things was, depending on which data room you'd get, you'd have one that allows you to download the documents from that data room into your actual laptop, and you can review them from there. You'd have ones where you can't download the documents and you have to review them from that data room. They even build in like accountability and confidentiality features where if there's 5 of us, can everybody write their names in the chat quickly? Just write your name in the chat. Quick. I'm going to give you a good example of some of the features that they now have compared to just going into a room and just reviewing documents from a warehouse. I'm not seeing anybody's name. Simanye, thank you. Is everybody else sleeping, guys? Wake up. Takalo, thank you. I need one more name, then I'll do my example. One more name, please. Goodness, thank you. Okay, so say Goodness, Takalo, and Simanye are all in a team, and they all meant to review 100 documents, right? And all these documents are contained within one folder that all three of them can access. And what would happen is with a lot of the very sophisticated data rooms is that when you log in with your email, every document you open is automatically given a watermark with your name and email behind it. As soon as you open it, it gives it your watermark. If you close it, obviously it will remove it. So if Simanye gets into it and opens it, it gives it Simanye's watermark. If she closes it, that's fine. If Takalo opens it, it gives it her watermark. And the intention for this is if Simanye downloads the document and somehow loses it and it ends up in some weird place where it's like, how guys, we gave access to 3 people and now we have these 3 documents just floating around in the internet. It's going to have your email in the watermark. That's just to build in accountability as to who opened this, who interacted with it, and who might have possibly been the one to leak it. So that's some of the things they have. Some even have automatic indexing. The automatic indexing is good for when you start allocating documents to people, especially within M&A, because you're going to have a team. Again, Simanye, Takalo, and Goodness are part of this team, and there's 100 documents. Obviously, that doesn't mean all 3 of you are going to review all 100 documents. So we'll just do a 33 split, like 33 documents per person. And what would happen in that case is that you can base your split on the indexing. So whenever the client uploads all the documents into that data room, the data room is going to automatically assign a number to them. And once they have that number, you can essentially, as Simanye, say, I'm taking documents 1 to 33. Then Takalo takes documents 33 to 66, and then Goodness takes from 66 to 99. I don't know who takes the one that's left out. You just have to decide amongst yourself, but you have things like the accountability aspect where it will put your watermark there. You'll have things like the indexing, which helps a lot. Then another sophisticated tool that they'll sometimes add is the search feature, where you can essentially now in your documents, say there's like 100 of them now, you can actually search a word and it will read each and every one of them and it will pinpoint where that word appears, right, in each and every one of these documents. This is useful now because you're moving from a system where people used to go into a room full of documents and review all of them one by one to a system where you can sort documents better, you can interact with them in a more digital way. And that's part of like the things that have been there even before AI for law firms. When I started, even before the hype started building up. That way you guys can get a bit of the context behind where firms have been for the past probably 20 years and why now they have to deal with all these new issues. It's not that they didn't have technology. And when I say technology, I don't mean like weak technology. I mean things that are as close to AI as possible. They've had that, but even just shifting from that to the AI models is such a big leap that there's had to be new discussions around the whole thing. Cool. I'll now resume the whole thing, and then you guys can just let me know if you have any comments and if you have anything to say so far.
E-discovery changed that picture, especially here in South Africa.
It completely transformed it. Suddenly, lawyers could search massive volumes of electronic documents using keywords. They could filter by dates, use basic analytics. It was revolutionary. And South Africa really jumped on board with this. By 2021, firms found these processes totally transformative for handling the sheer amount of electronic data in litigation.
Okay. And then there were things like document management systems, I guess, just to handle all the files.
Exactly. Systems like iManage, SharePoint, they became absolutely vital. They helped manage the enormous number of documents firms create. They handled version control, helped maintain client confidentiality, allowed teams to collaborate much more easily. Maybe not flashy, but definitely the backbone of the digital firm.
And what about something like e-signatures? That must have sped things up massively.
Oh, absolutely. A game changer. Platforms like DocuSign just revolutionized how documents got signed. No more printing endless copies, couriering them around, scanning them back in, just secure electronic versions.
Cool. I'm going to pause this because I have a comment. So I'm going to start with the document management side. The document management side is important because, especially now when we have remote work, having a file full of documents is fine, but being able to keep them in a secure digital space is even better. You might think the reasons are obvious, but beyond just the obvious thing of, oh yeah, it's in the cloud, when they were speaking about version control, a lot of these hosting platforms will be able to track who's changed the document, what the date was. So it actually gives lawyers a bit more insight through metadata on how to deal with these things. That way, instead of just finding a document and thinking it's the latest, you can actually interact with the metadata in it. It also allows firms to also go around the problem of file limits whenever they're sending documents to each other. So I think for Outlook, the max you can send is like 25 megabytes for an attachment. But if you have an attachment that exceeds that, you come across key issues. Because if you send it via Google Drive and it's just your personal account, you better hope that document is not important. And you better hope there isn't some security breach with your own account, which means firms were able to now have secure platforms where even their clients will know that, okay, these guys are going to send me this thing. It's going to come through this platform. This platform is recognized by the whole industry. It has the standard security systems that we expect for all these things. That way, again, you don't have important documents being lost. You don't have important documents essentially just floating around anyway. So that helps a lot. E-signature as well helps. One thing I would say, if you're in this chat and you want to like at least be up to date with the most commonly used tool in legal practice, try to figure out how DocuSign works. Try to figure that out, because even if you don't get into a law firm, say maybe you get a role in a bank or another institution, most likely they're going to be using DocuSign for a lot of their documents. And if you come in there already understanding how it works, it saves you a good 2 weeks of awkward, oh no, I didn't know how to do it properly. Also, check out what the Electronic Communications Act says about e-signatures. Essentially, South Africa does allow you to sign a document through a e-signature platform. This could be Adobe, it could be DocuSign, but essentially it's permitted. And this is important because in some countries, the only way you can ever have a valid contract or a valid document that's signed, it's if it's signed through Wet Ink. With South Africa, you still have some categories of documents that still need to be signed via Wet Ink. Like you can't DocuSign it. It's not an option. I think every document that goes to the deeds office and the master's office, strict as a requirement, is supposed to be signed via Wet Ink. But there's a lot of exceptions with other places. Obviously, I think with certain institutions, it's just to avoid security issues and reliability issues. So they just would rather prefer to have a Wet Ink documents. Some institutions also prefer original documents. So you do get into that weird space. And I think actually another thing, in addition to understanding DocuSign as a minimum, because I'm not going to ask you to know everything now about AI, if you can understand the type of documents that are required to be signed in Wet Ink and for originals to be provided. Obviously, you don't need to know this across the whole legal landscape, but if you're perhaps interested in property law, you might want to understand whether a sale agreement should be signed using DocuSign or it can only be signed via Wet Ink. If you're going to a certain space, just try to like think about those practicalities in terms of there's technology available for doing this, but is it permitted in the legal world to do it through that technology? So I'm going to go forward with this whole thing, but just give that a bit of mind. And this was just to set the background around. We're not saying firms were so ancient or the legal fraternity was so behind and now everything's changed. We're saying that they're undergoing an evolution that has happened multiple times before. It's just that with this new one, there's new considerations and new discussions and probably even new regulations that need to be considered.
And this was particularly important in South Africa because the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act gave legal recognition to e-signatures, made it all possible.
Right. And even things like transcription technology. You mentioned Dragon, naturally speaking. That was a kind of early AI, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It used early pattern matching algorithms, basically turning spoken words into text, automating a task that used to be purely manual. So you see, all these foundational tools work together. They digitized workflows, tackled practical problems like document volume and speed. They automated a lot of administrative stuff and essentially built the digital infrastructure that modern AI needed to really take off.
It's clear the groundwork was definitely laid.
Okay, let's talk about the modern AI tools that are really making waves now. The adoption rate has been stunning, hasn't it? ChatGPT becoming the fastest growing consumer app ever. And South African firms are absolutely in the thick of it, no question. By mid 2023, you had major players like Weber Wenzel openly talking about their generative AI journey.
Yeah.
They were actively experimenting with these new tools for drafting, for research, and this is crucial under very strict verification.
Wait. Before I go forward, and this is not a laughing matter, but does anybody know who this is? If you do, you're probably a crook. If you don't, it's fine. Anyway, this is again another issue where when you're trying to understand the context of AI, I created this presentation using a tool that didn't used to have AI, but just I think in the past year or two, they implemented an AI feature where you can again take all your notes or your presentation format, paste it there, and it will literally create the presentation for you. What I usually do is I start it off that way and then I do my own edits. But for this presentation, I didn't do the edits. And what I'm left with is too many pictures because usually my presentations don't have these many pictures. But the way they trained their AI was to tell it, hey, man, usually people want a lot of nice colors in their presentations. They want a lot of pictures that show the point of what they're speaking about. You need a heading, you need the paragraph, and everything. Until you run into a few issues. One, it puts in way too many pictures that it doesn't consider the context. With law, usually you're not trying to speak through images, although you can if that's your presentation style. But usually you try to lead with the substance and make just the illustrations be only for necessary parts. This thing is just trained to always throw in pictures, always throw in pictures. First, sort of, I'm not going to say a fault, but sort of downside of it. Second downside is because it lacks context or it just has limited context. It figured that, oh, this guy is doing a talk about AI in law. So I need to have things that, or pictures that have robots, computers, and I need a lot of men in suits. But now, why am I getting the Wolf of Wall Street in my presentation? I cannot tell you why. But for some reason, it figured this man looks like a lawyer, he's in a suit, and he looks somewhat related to the topic, which he's not. Well, he's related to the law in some ways that I won't put in this whole presentation, but that's just to show you what you are dealing with. Because once you get into the serious stuff, documents that have to go to court, documents that have to be reviewed by your seniors and go to clients, these tiny mistakes or these tiny oversights are actually the bigger problems that lawyers have to deal with. It's fine when it's just a presentation, and obviously if you don't know who this guy is, he just looks like a lawyer and it's fine. But because if you understand the limits of AI, it just makes sense to you why it will end up doing these things. Where you have, I think his name is Jordan Belfort in this whole thing. I'm guessing nobody knows who Jordan is because nobody's typed in his name in the whole thing. But yeah, anyway, let's go back to this whole chat because I don't know why he's here.
Protocols, they know the risks.
So how are the traditional legal research providers, big names, adapting? Are they bringing AI in?
They absolutely are. And this is where it gets really interesting and frankly, powerful. Your LexisNexis, your Thomson Reuters, they've integrated AI directly into their platforms.
Mhm.
Lexis Plus AI, for instance, adds an AI assistant right on top of their trusted database. It can answer legal questions, summarize results. But here's the key difference, and it's vital.
Okay.
The answers are backed by citations to real verified cases from their database.
Ah, so it's not just making things up like the general tools might.
Exactly.
Okay, that's actually important because And I don't know if you got the point, but essentially it's to say we have local service providers and research platforms. And now, because there's AI, they've had to try and adapt their own platforms to cater for this opportunity and to have capabilities that are fit for the current landscape. So the key thing obviously would be lawyers already know that the case is here in this platform some way, right? And we already have features like the Boolean search, whatever, that can help you at least index what might be relevant for you and then go through it one by one to find the actual case. But they're trying to build in systems where you do not just need an index that you can go through one by one. You need an answer now and you need the citation for that answer. The good thing with them is that, unlike a lot of the just general chat models or research AI tools that are out there, those tools would just draw from everything on the internet. Their tools draw from their own internal database. So if their whole deal is we get cases from Safely or from the courts directly, and then we get journals and other articles or law related stuff from the universities. We can compile all that. Now we have a huge library, but going through it is a big problem for the professionals. So you're going to build in a system on teaching this tool how to go into each and every one document and searching for the relevant stuff. Good thing is now you have less problems with fake citations because it couldn't go outside the parameters of this research platform, which means whatever it found it here. That works for actually finding something with the citation. It doesn't work for finding something that is accurate because you're responsible for vetting the accuracy. So in a sense, you could still get the case, you could still get the citation, but if the conclusion that you put in your papers is the conclusion that the AI model gave you, there's a chance that the AI model was being very generous in its interpretation of this thing. There's a chance that it might have actually overlooked some stuff. So maybe you are looking for a case that would be authoritative in the Gauteng High Court, but it gives you a case that's not authoritative in this high court. Perhaps it's from another high court, or maybe it just overlooks one technicality of law, which is why when you're in varsity, your understanding of the law has to be really getting into the fundamental parts. Because then when you're now using these systems to lessen your workload, you can easily spot when they've missed the fundamental part. You can easily spot where it's like, this is not a South African law journal. You found a case, you found it in this reliable database, you've given me a citation, and the case is actually somewhat useful in a sense that it answers the question, but because of how rules for jurisdiction work, the case is not binding on the court. So that's the actual gist of it.
Directly tackles that huge hallucination problem we talked about. When you use something like Lexis plus AI or Westlaw Precision, the AI's answers are anchored to reliable sources. You get the speed and the conversational style of AI, but with the rock solid reliability of authoritative legal content. It's a massive step up for research accuracy.
That makes sense. And then there are tools specifically for document review and contract analysis AI, things like Cura Systems, Luminance. What impact are these having?
These are driving huge efficiency gains.
Yeah.
Massive. They use machine learning to rapidly identify clauses, flag potential issues, extract key data from contracts, just incredibly fast. Take Bowman's, for example. They invested in Cura way back in 2018, and they specifically trained it on local South African contracts, which is important.
Right, tailoring it. So what kind of results are firms actually seeing with these tools?
The results are pretty significant. In 2023, you had firms like Bowman's, Weber Wenzel, Cliff Decker Hoffmeyer, all reporting that these AI and machine learning tools were saving up to 50% of lawyer time on document review tasks.
50% again, that's consistent.
It is. But the real insight here, the sort of aha moment for you as a student, it isn't just about reviewing documents faster. It's fundamentally changing the entry-level lawyer role. You're no longer just part of the review army slugging through documents. You're becoming the strategic overseer. You're critically assessing the AI's output.
Yeah,
and that demand.
That's actually nice and cool and actually true, because what I realized when I was a junior was the AI tools actually help you as the most junior person in the firm have another junior under you. So the same way, if somebody more senior than you tells you to go look for something, You could come back and lie. You could come back with wrong information. You could just come back with irrelevant information. The same way they'd have to vet you and see whether what you're bringing forward is accurate and appropriate to be either presented to court or the client or to the partner, is the same way you have to vet the technology that you're using. So there's even instances where some tools that you wouldn't think would mislead you end up misleading you. So, for example, if you have an automatic transcription tool in your Teams or Zoom or whatever, there's instances where that tool will not understand certain accents, right? Or maybe somebody's mic is not audible enough. So, when it's now transcribing information, it might miss a few keywords or not hear things well, and it just ends up writing whatever. It's not going to be like, oh, didn't hear this word. It's just going to, oh, that sounds like this word, and it writes it, which means you now have to be aware of even like small things like that for context. Because if you've been put in a meeting and they're like, hey man, can you write some notes for us for this meeting because you're the most junior person here, and you say yes, but in your mind you're like, I'm too smart, I'll just put in this AI system. As soon as you're now letting it run, in your mind you should be looking for every pitfall or every mistake it could make. And if you get into a call and you can see that, okay, the other side isn't audible, or perhaps the other person on the other side perhaps is I don't know, a Spanish person, and they have a very strong Spanish accent, be aware of, okay, this thing might actually not work as good as I wanted it to, right? It could be connection issues. There's a whole lot. And I think whenever you're looking at what practitioners are worried about, it's not just about, oh, this thing lies. Sometimes it's technical problems or pitfalls that even you can appreciate. You can see why, if this thing always takes words from English speakers and transcribes those, as soon as it finds somebody who's not an English speaker but is somehow communicating in English, it might actually have comprehension issues. Just because it has comprehension issues doesn't mean it won't write. It will still write, which means whatever it's writing, you now have to have a lot of awareness of. Sometimes it might even be numbers. If some people, or in a meeting, people are discussing numbers and dates and it mishears those are meant to be really accurate. So you might find a case where you are now relying on your notes that you took using this tool, but because the tool has certain limitations or certain training contexts that don't allow it to get through certain issues, it's now giving you incorrect information. So it's good to also appreciate that part of everything.
It's a completely new skill set right from day one.
That's a really important point about the changing role. Okay, and how has AI supercharged e-discovery beyond those earlier systems?
Well, modern e-discovery platforms like Relativity, they now have features like active learning. The AI continuously learns and improves its predictions about which documents are relevant. You can cluster documents by themes, spot duplicates much more effectively using sophisticated algorithms. This is becoming indispensable in South Africa, honestly. The sheer volume of electronic data in litigation is just exploding. So these AI augmented workflows are pretty crucial now for managing bigger cases efficiently.
Right. And there's also a newer wave, isn't there? AI document drafting and review assistance.
Absolutely. Tools like Casetext CoCounsel, which runs on GPT-4, the same engine behind ChatGPT, are emerging. These can actually help write research memos, suggest contract language, check documents for inconsistencies. Imagine, say, a South African attorney using CoCounsel to generate a first draft of heads of argument.
Okay.
That frees them up to focus their time and energy on the high-level strategy, the nuanced legal reasoning, rather than just the more routine drafting part.
Okay, before I go forward, I'd also like to point out something that's very interesting and is emerging. So it used to be, when you get your law degree, you're either going to go do articles, work in compliance for perhaps a commercial company of some sort, or become an academic or become an advocate. The nice thing with today's world is that AI has presented these new businesses, maybe not so new, right? Not so new in the sense that they've always been providing productivity tools, but new in the sense that they now have a new way of providing productivity tools, which is the AI way. There's now opportunities for you to actually work in some of these places. So whenever you're thinking about what life looks like after university, maybe you can also start looking into, okay, there's companies that are actually involved in technology and AI within the legal space. What can I find out about them? And is it perhaps a good place to start and do work there before I go into practice? Maybe it's because you can't find articles, or maybe it's just because you're not sure what type of area of law you'd like to specialize in. Now you can be part of a team that's perhaps working for one of these research platforms, and you're part of the guys that are training these AI models. You're part of the guys that are creating standards or guidelines for how these AI models work. And I think that's actually the fascinating part about being a law student today. Not only do you get to use the AI tools, you get to also learn a lot from the people that have now gotten a bit of time to test them, and you might actually get an opportunity to work with companies that are at the forefront of deploying these tools. You might be the one that now is a specialist in just advising on how these tools work. So I do feel like when we were students, it was, again, you either go be a candidate attorney, you go into compliance, or maybe work for a regulator. But it was still the same kind of idea. You're just working to apply law. Now, you're not just working to apply law, you're now working on how the future lawyers will be utilizing tools, research platforms, or even just productivity tools to implement their work. You're now the guy that's actually at the forefront of a new branch of people in the legal space. Cool. Let's continue.
Does sound incredibly powerful. But you also hinted earlier there are significant risks here. What are the really crucial conversations we need to have about the challenges, the potential pitfalls of AI in law?
Right. This is the other side of the coin. And it's absolutely vital we talk about it.
Yeah.
As amazing as these tools are, AI comes with very real risks. Risks that can undermine accuracy, integrity, trustworthiness if you're careless.
And the biggest one that jumps out, the one we keep hearing about, is AI hallucinations. Can you break down what that actually means
Semenya
and why
is
it's such a
gonna
danger in
be
law?
Yeah,
so
hallucination
happy.
is the term.
Oh,
It means the
please
AI
excuse me.
essentially generates false or non-existent information. Think completely made-up case citations, bogus statutes that don't exist. And it happens because these models are basically predicting words. They look at patterns in their massive training data and predict the most probable next word, then the next.
So they're not actually checking facts.
Exactly. They're not verifying facts against a reliable source. They're just constructing plausible sounding sentences based on patterns. So they can confidently fabricate output that sounds completely legitimate, but is actually totally untrue. It's a very, very convincing liar.
And this isn't just theoretical, right? We've seen this happen in the real world.
Unfortunately, yes. There was a very high profile case in New York in 2023. A lawyer filed a brief citing 6 cases, 6
Ooh.
non-existent cases.
Okay, no. He is the worst. I can get 1, I can get 2, 3, 6. 6. I can get where you find 6 fake cases, you spot 4, and you're left with 2, and somehow those 2 slip by. Anyway, I'm not judging. It is I'm not gonna say it's an honest mistake. It's a learning opportunity because, again, when you're a lawyer, you're in a space where you have to be highly productive, highly responsive, and you try to use whatever is within your disposal to actually get things done, impress the client, and just serve justice. So you can see an instance where somebody's under pressure, and you can also see an instance where somebody's reliably used this tool or this AI platform for so long that it just, hey, no, I know my platform and it always gives me the best work. But now it actually makes a mistake. The hard part about this is that if this was you trusting a human that always does research for you and always output research for you, there's accountability on their side. This is a human being. So if it was your junior and you're like, in the past 9 months, you've actually done amazing work, I can't believe you came back with 6 fake cases. If it's a human being, there's a bit of accountability. There's also just them appreciating what they've just done wrong. Whereas if it's an AI tool, you can't even go to your client and tell them what happened because you are the one that's supposed to be accountable. So it is very tricky. And I do appreciate how, maybe this was an instance where it was an honest mistake. But I will tell you, like, people are running out of chances here. So at some point, these are going to be very, very unacceptable things. They already are unacceptable, but I'm talking you will have your head on the chopping board. And this is when you guys are going to be starting practice. So I hope that's not scary, but let's continue.
That ChatGPT had just invented.
Oh, wow.
He got hit with a $5,000 fine, a strong reprimand from the court, a huge embarrassment. It was a stark warning shot.
And we've had our own wake-up calls right here in South Africa too, haven't we?
We have indeed. In the Mavundla case down at the KwaZulu-Natal High Court, and also the northbound processing case in the Gauteng High Court, in both instances, legal teams submitted documents that included fictitious citations, almost certainly generated by AI tools.
Okay, so what's been the reaction from South African?
Whoop! Before we get into the reactions by South African courts, notice even with this audio that we're listening to right now, right? You heard this guy say Mavundla, but they said Mavundla in a very, very unnatural way. You also heard them say Gauteng, but they said Gau. I can't even say what they said. But I think this is one of those times where everybody is not only appreciating the capabilities of these AI tools, but they're also appreciating the obvious limits that they have. So again, I told you that we're playing this audio, sounds impressive, sounds like a talk show, but because of its training, there's limitations. And I think maybe one of the key things that if you are a lawyer or an aspiring lawyer, you should be trying to get accustomed with is understanding how AI platforms, models, or tools are trained, because then you can anticipate that, oh, this thing is only good at summarizing documents in this way because it's been trained in this way. So if I ask it to summarize this, it might make a mistake. Or this platform is a research platform for the whole world, which means if I need South African cases only, one of the biggest pitfalls it might have is giving me cases from other countries, right? The good thing is with the big platforms like LexisNexis, they've already built in parameters to say we operate across different jurisdictions, but for the South African product, you can only get South African results. That way, we appreciate and actually respect the fact that there's a key principle around research and authority in the legal space, which is jurisdiction, right? So I think once you come to understand, not a lot of it, just come to understand that this is an American tool. It's trained on how to speak in an American way. So once you have words or a cadence or certain things that are just super specific to a specific country or specific language, it's gonna have its limitation. It just literally said Mavundla in a bad way and Gauteng. Not big deals, especially if we're talking audio, especially if we're talking in formal settings. But now, if we're talking law and research and authority, small mistakes like this are now not acceptable, right? Cool. Let me just continue and yeah.
Courts to this kind of thing.
Their response has been absolutely unequivocal, crystal clear. In that northbound case, acting Judge Smith didn't mince words. He made it plain that submitting such errors would be treated as professional misconduct. And he actually referred the lawyers involved to the Legal Practice Council for potential disciplinary action.
Strong sport.
Very strong. And it underlines the point. Even AI trained specifically on South African law can still hallucinate. The ultimate responsibility for verification rests squarely with the human lawyer. Full stop. Our courts are also looking internationally, like at a 2025 English High Court decision that established an absolute professional duty for lawyers to check AI outputs. Ignorance is just not a defense.
A very powerful message indeed. Okay, what about confidentiality and data security? That seems like a massive potential issue when lawyers are handling highly sensitive client information.
It absolutely is a huge concern. Lawyers have strict duties, ethical and legal, to protect client information, and they have to comply with privacy laws like South Africa's POPI.
Did you catch that? It said POPI. Now, I do understand. A lot of people say Poppy, others say Popia. There's a lot of different ways to say it, but I've never heard POPI. Like, I've never heard POPI. But again, you can now see how it looks at this word and it's like, I have to pronounce it somehow. And because literally, it's like the voices in its head are American voices. So it has to obviously deliver it in an American voice. And there you go. You got POPI in this whole thing.
Imagine you upload a sensitive draft agreement, maybe a confidential memo, to a free online generative AI tool.
Right.
You have to ask, where does that data actually go? Is it processed overseas? Could it be used to train future versions of the AI model if properly deleted? It could easily constitute an unauthorized cross-border data transfer under POPI. That's a massive red flag.
So what's the guidance from the Legal Practice Council, the LPC, on this?
Well, the LPC has been clear. Existing confidentiality rules absolutely apply when using AI. Lawyers must carefully vet the terms of use and the security measures of any AI tool they use with client data. As a result, many firms now strictly prohibit using those free public online AI tools with any client information, or opting instead for secure private enterprise versions or developing their own internal tools.
Cool. Before we go forward, I mean, you probably got the point, right? You have a platform that's probably free for everybody to use. It has all these capabilities that you as the lawyer, you're very excited. Yeah, I might use this actually. It'll cut down all the time that I have to spend doing this thing. But within that is data privacy as a concern or data confidentiality as a duty for you, right? You now take all that information and you put it into this platform. Your client doesn't know about this. You also do not know the extent to which this platform can protect that information. You don't know if it will use it later and will probably make it a result for somebody else when they're doing a search on that platform. So it's essentially you have, or you're in a position where there's a tool you want to use. You do not understand its security measures and its limitations around how it deals with data. And you also have a client that gave you that information. They're trusting you to handle it securely and confidentially. So within that, what I've seen was when you are fortunate enough to work for big firms or big companies that have a lot of money for security measures and IT systems, you'll have websites that are blocked. You'll have apps that explicitly cannot be used, either because the firm has told you not to use them or because the site itself or the browser doesn't allow it. Some companies you might get there and your Google Gmail account doesn't work on it, mainly because they do not want you having the opportunity to upload files into your Gmail and then get them out, right? Some companies, you might find that certain websites are explicitly blocked. And what I've also noticed is that within the professional space, adopting technology is not as quick as, oh, ChatGPT 5 just dropped. Let's now start using it. There's usually a comprehensive vetting process that they'll undergo where they try to look at, again, what are the potential breach issues that we might have with this whole technology? What measures do they have around confidentiality? Do they understand our industry and can they respect the duties that we have to our client, to the regulator, and maybe just to the firm as a whole? So the key issue becomes not an issue necessarily, but the dynamic becomes that when you get hired by a firm that doesn't have these inbuilt protections, you are more free to experiment. But if you do not know what's expected of you and the risks of you experimenting are, you might end up in trouble. When you do get into the larger, more well-equipped, well-resourced companies, it will really start getting obvious to you what you can and can't do. This is why even when we started, well, at least when I started Articles, the firm I worked for had a comprehensive course just on security and IT, just to help you understand things like phishing, help you understand confidentiality, data privacy, just to get you to appreciate that you're now working in a very, very regulated environment. It has a lot of stakeholders that are trusting you to not be the weak point in it. So that's a bit of context that I can offer with this, that you need to be aware of. If I go into a law firm that doesn't have inbuilt systems that tell me what I can use or what I can't use, I need to have my own judgment. I can't get there at week one or month one and be so eager to impress and be like, I know all these tools I can use. Let me just use them. It's more appropriate and more safer to maybe consult, be cautious, maybe even just refrain from using anything that whoever is your senior is not using themselves. So I think that's one of the nuggets that you get when you attend some of these sessions, and that you're not just gonna go into practice and be bad at law if that's your biggest worry. The law part will take care of itself, but you can get to practice and be bad at a lot of other things that maybe they haven't gotten an opportunity to teach you on, maybe are so novel that you just nobody had the time to talk about it. But you, on the technology and AI side, have to understand how not all tools are safe. It's not just about hallucinations. It's about, if I want to summarize this document and I have a platform where I've been using to summarize it, if this document has confidential information, personal data, and a lot of other secure stuff that shouldn't be out, is it even safe to copy and paste it into this platform to summarize it? So now, when you're thinking, oh, it won't hallucinate, it's just going to summarize, but you just putting the information in that platform that summarizes the information might in itself be the biggest issue that you are creating. So, yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Sense. You also touched on bias and fairness earlier. How does that risk play out with AI, especially in a South African context, which is so sensitive?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. AI systems can inadvertently learn and then perpetuate biases that exist in their training data. So, for example, if an AI is trained on historical sentencing data that reflects past racial or gender biases, it might then recommend discriminatory outcomes in new cases without anyone realizing it's happening.
Oh, I see.
This is particularly worrying in South Africa, given our constitutional commitment to equality and, frankly, our history of systemic discrimination.
This is the scary part, because this is actually, in certain context, this is a success of your AI model, that it can know how things were done before and continue to do them according to that same standard. But if the standard was wrong from the beginning, then it won't notice that there's a transformative effort that's in between that. And you'll now get a case where, okay, somebody's saying hello. Hello, coding whale. Anyway, you'll get a case where this thing equates black person does this crime should get 100 years. This is how every case, or at least 99% of the cases I've read, have been done. But it doesn't understand how all the cases I'm reading are from maybe the pre-constitutional era, where all the judges, or maybe most of the judges, were racist. They didn't have a constitution that would bind how they do their decision making. They would literally have this unfair, attitude towards accused that are black. So it's not getting the full context of, this is a country that's undergone a change. We do not discriminate anymore. And if all these cases were discriminatory, if I'm now suggesting a sentence for this person, this is a sentence that must be based on the new framework, the new ambitions the country has. It can't be every case said, if you are black and you do this crime, you get 100 years. So this is actually, and I remember when I started hearing about it, it was one of the most scariest things, where judges were given tools where, use this one just to gauge how much you should give this person as a sentence. You tell the system the crime, you tell the system maybe the number of victims or whatever. It goes in and looks at how previous judges have decided this. It comes back to you with the suggested sentence. But if it's not conscious of maybe previous eras or attitudes that were prevalent, it won't be able to adjust for those. So anyway, let me continue before, yeah.
Using AI uncritically, without careful auditing for bias, could unfortunately end up reinforcing those very injustices we're trying to overcome. It requires constant vigilance.
That's a really critical point. And then there's the concern about professional competence and training. If AI starts automating all these tasks, what happens to how junior lawyers learn and develop their skills?
That's a very real, very valid concern. People are talking about this a lot. Traditionally, junior lawyers learn the ropes by doing things like legal research, proofreading documents meticulously, drafting basic clauses. These are precisely the tasks that AI is getting really good at automating. A director at Cliff Ducker Hoffmeyer actually noted that firms are going to have to carefully rethink how they train junior lawyers in this new AI-driven environment. The fear is this hollowing out of future skills.
Before I go forward, when I initially listened to this audio, because I had to listen to it before even coming to you guys, I was looking for all these things. And one of the issues that I had, or concerns that I had, was, what if my research is somehow wrong with the parts that were AI generated? And then that feeds into this. So as soon as in the research itself, I read a director for, I was like, whoa, we not only going to check the citation for this, we're going to make sure we can actually find the original article and make sure it's a verified article from a verified website. I was lucky enough to find it and it was valid. So one of the biggest things was, and sometimes that's what you should be looking for as well. It's what's the important information here that should not be wrong in all other cases. That way, even if you do not want to check the introduction, you do not want to check maybe some parts of the styling and the headings, maybe check the conclusion, maybe check the analysis part of your document. However, you're applying this tool, you must be aware of, okay, in this whole document, in this whole audio file, in this whole research finding, there's something that is the point. And the point, at the least, has to be the accurate one. And if this thing gets the point wrong, probably everything else is wrong. So here it was essentially you're trying to present a topic on AI. You're then trying to gather data from what professionals in the legal fraternity or in the South African legal industry are saying. And then you're trying to incorporate those comments into your own discussion. But again, if you're worried about hallucination, you'd be looking for what if it made up a fictitious director? That way it can give a bit more authority to this topic and give you a bit more context, right? And if you're not aware how just even having the wrong context or wrong person cited, it totally undermines the whole point of this. If you're not aware of that, then that's where you can come into these pitfalls where you've heard firm names being mentioned, you've heard all these other important regulators being mentioned, but it said the LPC said something they never said. I did check this. Hopefully, there's nothing else that I should check. So let's go on, though.
If you don't do the foundational work, the sometimes tedious stuff, how do new lawyers develop that deep understanding, that intuition, that grit that comes from actually working through problems step by step?
So is this a
Wait, I think actually another thing is we kind of the last, when I say we, I mean me who graduated before 2020, before COVID. We're kind of the last of a dying generation because, in my view at least, this is like maths in a sense, where how did mathematicians get good at maths after the calculator was invented, right? Because everybody up until the calculator was invented had to do maths using rocks, hands, words, whatever. You can do the lines, whatever. But same thing with lawyers. Like, how do you become a lawyer that's good at really focusing and reading research if your whole thing is having a system that does research for you, having a system that extract everything that's relevant and summarizes it? Even worse, if you now even have a system that can speak for you. Because if we're getting into this, technically, and I don't know if this would work. This is a crazy idea. I hope nobody who's a professional in this series sees this. You could, when presenting arguments in court, you could take your heads of argument, upload them into the Notebook LM platform, have it create your whole argument as an audio, go to court. Let's hope you're really sick. That way you're not lying to the court. And you could essentially, my lord, I can't speak today, but I found a tool that can actually speak for me, and I'll just play it. It's all based on my research, my lord, and this is it. You could technically do that. I don't know. Maybe if I was the judge, you wouldn't do that. But maybe if the court sees this as an important matter, they don't want to postpone, you could do that. And the good thing would be, because it's based on your own heads of arguments, your own research, and maybe you vetted the audio, you just essentially went to court and didn't speak. At least not you. You spoke through a proxy of some sort. So now that's the whole thing, in that, do you even need to be a good advocate if your persuasiveness is in writing and you're able to upload the writing into a platform that speaks for you? Now, do you need to have a loud voice, a confident demeanor? Like, what exactly should be retained in training lawyers if you already have all these platforms that enable them to do just amazing things, right? And that's part of the big issue with the training. I know for a fact, well, no, I don't know for a fact. I always have the hunch that older, more seasoned lawyers look at younger lawyers like myself. And when I say like myself, I mean my age, as guys who have the ability to take the easy way out. By take the easy way out, I mean, again, we're going to use all these tools. And I always get the sense that they're probably they are hoping that we only do that just so we can ease the pressure, not because we don't want to learn law, not because we're not interested in the substance. We just do it because there's too much work. It does help them as well because, again, you are able to be more profitable, more productive, just more fluid in your work if you actually use the tools that are available for you. But there should be a hope that if the tools went away, you'd still have that same grit, maybe at a lesser level because you don't have the tools, but you'd still be good. Like, you'd still be good. Anyway, I'm gonna go forward. We're eating up so much time that if everybody leaves, I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm not gonna blame anybody because we're still gonna get to the practical parts, right? Cool. Whoop. Actually, let's just let's see if we can jump to some of the practical parts.
Does sound incredibly powerful. But you also hinted earlier there are significant risks here. What are the really crucial conversations we need to have about the challenges, the potential pitfalls of AI in law?
Right. This is the other side of the coin. And it's absolutely vital we talk about it.
Yeah.
I think we were already past this stage. Just gonna go here.
Every case citation, every statute reference, every legal interpretation the AI gives you. Don't just check if the case exists. Confirm the AI represented its holdings accurately. Did it capture the nuance? Is it relevant in the way the AI suggested? Go read the actual sections of the statute yourself. Make sure the AI summary or interpretation is correct and complete. No shortcuts here.
And what about the choice of tools? Are some inherently more reliable to begin with?
Generally, yes. It's usually better to use reputable AI tools that are integrated with trusted legal databases. Think Lexis plus AI, Westlaw Precision. Their baseline reliability is significantly higher because they're grounded in verified legal content. You should still verify important information, but they are built with legal accuracy as a core principle.
Okay. So definitely no just copying and pasting chunks of AI generated text directly into your work.
No,
Absolutely not. Never. You must always maintain human oversight and control. Treat AI output as a first draft or maybe research assistance, but never ever copy and paste it directly without critical review, editing, and making it your own. Remember, your name is going on that assignment, that brief, that document, not the AI's.
And that's important, right? Because when it comes down to it, it's you're the one that's the human here. You're the only one that can be sentenced. You're the only one that can be fired. You're the only one that can literally be blamed. And so you mustn't see this as it's not going to help, actually. You're never going to get away from being accountable for what your tool did. It's the same way, you know how, and I've done this as well, when you try to send an email, maybe you didn't wait until all the documents were attached and you send it out, and now only the actual, what you might call it, the actual content of the email is there. The attachment is not there. And then you have to be like, oh no, sorry, it was an attachment. It's not an attachment issue. It's you. It's you. Worst case scenario, and this has also sometimes happened. Remember when we were talking about the document management tools, where you have tools that enable you to upload files, get a link, and then give it to somebody else. Same as how Google Drive works, but now specifically for the legal sector. One of the things that might happen sometimes is you attach your document, but it's too big for your email, or at least the limit that your inbox or your email tool sets. And you send it, and it's sent, but it's not delivered to the other side. If you're lucky, you'll get a non-delivery report and it'll decide, the size issues. If you are unlucky, you will not know until the other person says it's not attached. And this is going to be one of those things where now, if you came into this thing understanding how your email tool works, the size limits, the other available opportunities or tools for sending documents, if you came in knowing that, you'd anticipate that this might not send. If you didn't know that and you didn't anticipate that your document might not send, you might be the guy that tells your boss, did you send the other side the contract? You're like, yeah, I sent it, dog. But you didn't because the size was too big. So one of the things, this is one of the simplest things you can always do, is you can CC yourself in the email and have yourself both as a sender and a recipient. That way, when the email comes to you, just as soon as you send it, and then 2 seconds, 3 seconds later, something pings into your inbox. You can see how it looks to somebody receiving the document. That way, you're now not just, oh, it's the system, it's you. So that's one of the key issues in that. It's always going to be your head on the chopping board because AI does not have a head. So just protect your head, dog. Protect your melon. Cool.
Understanding its weaknesses must be key too, right? Knowing what it can't do well.
Precisely. Understand AI's limitations. It's often great for summarizing existing information, generating ideas, maybe drafting standard clauses, but it can be very unreliable for nuanced legal analysis, for understanding very recent developments, since or for predicting truly novel legal arguments. Use it appropriately. Know where it excels and know when you absolutely need to rely on your own human expertise and judgment.
What about actually documenting when you've used AI? Is that important?
It can be, yes, especially in academic settings right now. It's good practice to document your AI use where appropriate or required. It builds habits of transparency that will serve you well in professional practice later on. And frankly, can also protect you if there's ever a question about the origin of certain text or ideas. Shows good professional judgment.
Yeah, I used to do this as well and I mean, you had to because you get into a firm that's very innovative, very agile, very responsible to market dynamics, and they do expect you to start actually being creative. So you try to gauge how far you can use certain tools and what actually has to happen. So what I would usually do would, especially if we were doing articles, right? Because if we're writing articles about certain issues, that's not billable work, but at the same time, it's very important and very serious work, which means when you're researching it, you won't have the whole day because nobody's paying. But at the same time, it has to be the same standard you would if you're researching something that has to go to court or that has to go to a client or the other party. So what I would do was if I was doing my research and then I have the first draft of the article, I would add comments to each and every part where I got that result or that understanding from AI. And this was important because then it primes whoever's reviewing the document to not just think, oh, this guy is perfect, he understands everything. They should now be able to see where, oh, okay, in this part, he had to be creative and find something. Oh, in this part, I have to be very diligent and like see if I can either ask him more questions, query the results myself, or just have some form of engagement with what's written that's in addition to the level of engagement I would have put into it if I just thought it was normal research. So I would do that. I would literally put in comments. If I got some understanding from maybe a prompt, I would say, this is the prompt that I put into this platform. This is the results it gave me. And that would help them because then they'd see, okay, you actually prompted this thing correctly, or maybe your prompt was missing some important things you should have asked the AI to give you. And that's why I should be concerned with this. So the key thing here is that you should be aware of how you're not perfect, the tool is not perfect. But if you're lucky and you're part of a nice work environment where there's a support system and they actually encourage you to be innovative, there is that room to tell people, hey, man, can we both look at this? Because it's not from my research, it's actually from the research that the AI tool assisted with. I do have this correct citation, I do have the correct website, but maybe tell me, maybe it's in the commercial field where is this a concept that's applicable to South Africa? Is this a standard that's applied in South Africa? Be open about where your limitations were and where AI supplemented them. That way, when you're now presenting your work to whoever's supervising it, they can be aware of this is your work, this is the AI's work. Obviously, you're still accountable, but at least I'm able to see where there should be further inspection or engagement about stuff. So, hope that at least helps you with some context.
I guess given how fast everything is changing, just keeping up is vital.
Oh, absolutely. You have to stay educated. This field is moving at lightning speed. Keep an eye on AI developments, read articles, Attend workshops if you can. Pay attention to any guidance coming from the LPC or law societies. The tools and the rules around them are constantly evolving.
And finally, building on what you said about spotting hallucinations, developing specific critical thinking skills for AI output.
Yes, exactly. You need to develop critical thinking skills, specifically for evaluating AI outputs. Learn to spot the red flags. Does that citation format look a bit weird? Does that legal principle sound slightly off or maybe too simplistic? Does the answer just feel a bit glib or generic? The more you practice critically reviewing AI text, the better your intuition will become at catching potential errors before they become your errors.
Ultimately, it really sounds like responsible AI use boils down to upholding those fundamental values of the legal profession: accuracy, integrity, competence, service to clients, service to justice. These principles don't suddenly change just because we have new tools. If anything, they become even more critical to consciously uphold.
Couldn't agree more. These are just tools. Powerful tools, yes, but tools nonetheless. They enhance what you do, but they absolutely do not replace your core professional duties and ethical obligations.
Okay. And looking at the bigger picture now, thinking about careers, how can mastering these AI skills actually give students like our listeners a competitive edge in the job market?
This is a really significant potential advantage, actually. Law firms are increasingly looking for graduates who aren't just bright, but who also understand legal technology
Yeah.
and can adapt quickly to new tools and workflows.
Yeah.
So when you're applying for vacation work or articles, don't just list your grades. Highlight how using AI tools maybe enhanced your research efficiency on a project,
Yeah.
or improved the clarity of your writing, or helped you manage a complex mood court case. Focus on the results you achieved using the technology.
So it's not just saying, I know how to use ChatGPT, it's demonstrating the impact.
Exactly. And crucially, also demonstrate that you understand the limitations and the risks. Being able to talk intelligently about the dangers of hallucinations or confidentiality concerns shows maturity. It shows professional judgment. It tells potential employers that you can leverage technology responsibly, not
Yeah.
just blindly follow its output. Also,
Before we go forward, and this is something that is really key, right? So when I was still in practice, the firm I worked for had something they call a tech campus. It was essentially a platform that's full of all the technology you could use. It was so much. It was so much. I probably used like 3 out of a list of 100 things. And it was for different things. Some for creating organograms. There was tools for translating documents, literally, where you could put in a French agreement, or sometimes if you have maybe a client that's Spanish, and in their internal memo, when they were discussing something, they put it in Spanish. But now they need you to like give them an answer quickly. They don't have time to like go and find a translator in. You could, as a competent high-end firm, be like, oh, we'll take it. You accept it, you put it in your platform, you translate it, and now you are able to actually get an idea of what they were saying. So that's the thing, in that as much as you might not get into a firm with the tech campus, if you still don't have a law firm, you still have room to like try and have not a database, just a list of at least 10 tools that you are capable in, right? Find one for presentation. Everybody already understands PowerPoint and uses PowerPoint, but maybe find a second alternative one. Maybe it's one that is able to turn data into better visual representation. Maybe it's one that's able to, I don't know, give maybe interactive features when you're presenting something, like click on this, it gives you this, click on that, it gives you that. Actually, hold on. Let me show you. Because everything they're speaking about here is the same approach I tried to use when building this presentation for you guys and building this whole session for you guys. It's why the whole thing was taking so long to start, because I had to show you guys that we're not just here to speak about AI, but we're going to try to have some level of engagement with at least the entry-level tools that you can if you're a student. So let me give you an idea of what I'm speaking about. There's 6 people in the chat. Please do not leave. You are in prison here. Please put 1 in the chat if you believe you have very limited exposure to AI, and 2 if you have above average exposure. I'm just trying to get a general idea. So it's 1 if you have very limited exposure, 2 if you have above average exposure. Let's just get an idea of where everybody sits. We might do this till midnight, actually. And if you gotta go somewhere, please leave and we'll just upload it. You can watch it tomorrow on a Sunday. Tabiso is like 1. Okay, that's actually fine. Don't worry about it. Simanya is 1. 1 if you think it's below. What 2 if you think it's above average interaction. Like, do you? And please do not put 2 if you use ChatGPT only. Like, put 2 if you feel like I know 5 AI tools that no other law student in my class knows about. That's the standard for putting 2. Okay, I'm going to show you something that's really nice and very. I wish we had this when I was still a law student. Let me just stop sharing my screen here first. Cool. I do not feel professional today. I just feel like I'm dressed down. Like I do not feel professional. Anyway, this is not time to complain about my fashion choices. Let's get into the interactive and fun parts. I actually don't think we'll continue with this talk at all. I'll try to upload it for you guys to listen to it on your own. It's 30 minutes. Hope you'll have that time in addition to having heard it from me. But cool. So what you're seeing here is the page that you would see after you've went to Google Notebook LM, and you've uploaded your audio file. Remember, I told you that these guys, by these guys, I just mean Google, they created a platform where you can turn your file, whether it's an audio file, presentation, whatever, into an actual audio presentation or podcast of what you are uploading there. So the one that you're seeing here is what you guys were listening to. One thing I'd like to point out to you guys is once you've uploaded your document here, you now have the opportunity to actually interact with the document. They have this tab here, which is essentially a chat box or just a chat feature, and you can ask it specific questions based on the presentation itself, and it will give you results just to show you how it can't hallucinate, because its parameters are the document. At worst, it's just playing with words and saying things in a way that kind of sounds like what's said in the document, but it's not coming in with new information, right? Since we're talking hallucinations. But in the chat, if you would be so kind as to give me a question, I'll copy from the chat and paste it here. So any question you might have based on this presentation, or maybe just a general question, I'm sure it's covered somewhere in this presentation. So just give me a question and we'll put it here, and then we'll literally get a live use case for this. Questions? Anybody? Anybody? Going once, going twice? I bet you Simanya is going to be the first person to put a question in there. Please put a question. This is not going to be so nice for when I want to clip this and put it on Instagram or wherever, because then I'll have to worry about all the time in between. Anybody got a question for the chat model here, guys? As I said, the response is going to be solely based on the research plus the audio file. The audio file is the same thing as the research. It's just, yeah, but just give me a question, we'll paste it here, and then you'll see live at least some of the capabilities that you might have been missing out on, especially for a feature like this or for a tool like this where it's free and you can just try and play around, maybe until you reach a certain limit, because I know some tools will be free until you've like overused it and now they're like, okay, you ran out of credits or something. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions and I'm just going to put in a question myself because we are running out of time. So what I will ask is, what is a complete no-no when dealing with AI tools? And wait. Thank God for spell check. Cool. You guys didn't ask any questions. I'm so disappointed. There we go. And then it's going to give you results, right? And as you can see, it's giving you citations here for the part of the whole document where it got this, right? That way you can actually go back and backtrack to where did it actually get its reasoning for this. You can then, if it was a document you don't trust, disagree with it, maybe supplement what it said or whatnot. But the same way I could put my own research here, have it as an audio file, and then be able to interact with it. If you had a particular case and they're like, it's 90 pages and nobody's been able to give me a summary. I've asked anybody, do you have notes on this? Do you have a summary on this? The same way, if you had that problem, you could come here and then upload the case, have it as an audio file that you can listen to, and it's going to be a bit more human-like because now you're listening to two people discuss a principle or a case in a very human-like way. Maybe it also helps because you can listen to it while you're cooking, while you're doing other chores, maybe while you're in the car or something like that. And you also have an interactive feature when you ultimately sit down and get to or want to engage with the content. So we asked it, what is a complete no-no when dealing with AI tools? And here's the answer it came back with. When dealing with AI tools in the legal profession, there are several actions and practices that are considered complete no-nos due to the significant risk that they pose to accuracy, integrity, client confidentiality, and professional standing, right? Based on the sources, which is what you provided now, it's failing to verify AI output with primary sources. It's copying and pasting AI-generated text directly without review. It's uploading sensitive client information or unsecured or general AI tools. It's allowing AI to replace your professional judgment or critical thinking. It's submitting false information, because once you got the false information and you didn't verify it, once you submit it, you're in trouble again. It's also compromising fundamental legal ethics and values, right? So already it's given you everything that is, well, it's giving you your response based on the question that you asked, and its response is premised on the document you gave it. So now, if you had a law case and you uploaded it, you could be able to ask it, what is this principle? And it would tell you about the principle based on the case. You'll be able to ask it, what did Judge so-and-so say about this? Now that you're clued up on how to use tools, you are now going to be careful enough not to just stop at, oh, this is the response it gave me, so now this goes into my notes. But if we're talking, are you productive? Are you creative? Are you open to new ways of learning and like engaging with the curriculum? This is perhaps one of them. Another feature that I loved, if you may have seen, well, you may have actually seen the picture that I posted explaining what exactly the topics are going to be about. I'm guessing that's why some people came here. So this is that, what you're seeing on the screen here. So not only does it not summarize, not only does it I'm going to start again. So not only does it convert your notes or input text into an audio file that you can listen to, and it's actually engaging, it's very audible, it's very nice. It also gives you a mind map of all the contents that are within your file. Hopefully your file has obvious headings that it can draw from, but I'm also sure if your file didn't have headings, it would still be able to give you something you can work with. Now you have the general topics, which is AI in South African law, and you also have each of the sub sort of categories when dealing with this topic or discussing this topic. And you can see it also allows you to expand from, is it still wrong to upload sensitive information on these AI tools to verify or proof check, even if it's integrated into the company's system? If it's integrated into the company's system, then that's an approved technology. So what you might want to do is find out from whoever the IT people are or the associates are if there's a list of approved technologies. With sophisticated companies, they will already have blocked all the websites they do not want you to use. Somehow they might have missed one website and you might have access to it, but then it becomes your job to now get an understanding of, is this a tool that I'm allowed to put something in, right? And sometimes it's weird because I've seen instances where it's not that your company or firm doesn't want to use the tool. It's just that they have to vet it as well before they integrate it. Because if they're going to tell all their professionals, oh, this is the nice tool, use it, they're also accountable for even recommending it to their professionals. So it might be that it's still coming. Maybe they're also eager to use it. They do see the value, but it still haven't been approved, right? So just try to like always get an understanding of what's available and what's not. I come from a large firm, and another thing that I noticed is that you'd have certain tools where licenses are limited, so they'll only give you access to that tool upon request and for a particular amount of time. If you are too forward, you might think, "Oh, we don't have this tool. It's not installed in my laptop, but I have my own subscription. Let me use mine." And now, although the firm has the tool and doesn't discourage its use, you've went and used your version of it that's not vetted and not approved. And it's a weird vibe because now it's going to be, we had this tool internally. All you had to do was just interact with us and find out if we can actually give you access to it. So I think it's one of those things where now that we're in an era where a lot of technology tools are at play, it's probably your job to get an understanding of what's approved, what's not approved, what's available, what's not available within your own firm or company. So anyway, going back to this, you have your diagram of the main topic, essentially deals with the topic of today, which is AI in South African law. And then it will break it down, right? Types of AI. It will actually give you a good outline of the topics that you can explore there. It will have all the things that are like relevant for foundational technologies. You have your electronic and e-discovery tools. You have document management systems. You have e-signatures. Even with that, it might actually expand it further and tell you which ones are those. So now, instead of you struggling to create your own nodes, you can have a dedicated system of, okay, maybe each time I have to start with the content. If I already have notes, I convert them into audio. And during the week, while I'm just attending classes and I'm too busy to sit down and actually study thoroughly, or maybe it's not just study time, that's what I listen to in addition to my podcast. And it's actually engaging. It's a bit more vibrant than just sitting down and reading cases as if they're newspapers. And then maybe when I'm now trying to study, I have my mind map that breaks down all the concepts and how they're linked to each other. And that's what I'm also relying on to bolster my comprehension of everything. So the idea is that you actually already have, if we're just talking one tool at your disposal that's free and super relevant to how you should be studying or can be studying rather. At the end of it, it just looks like this big old tree. And this is actually everything that I hope we covered. If you're wondering why this session is now 2 hours, I'm trying to lower it. This is everything that we've had to go through. Okay, it's no longer zooming back. It's fine. But yeah, and it all comes down from one core concept, right? So that's my whole, not selling point, because I'm not selling you guys anything, but that's my hope that when you now get into the AI part of the legal practice, you are able to appreciate the risks, the opportunities, the advantages that perhaps come with all these tools. And you just develop your own intuition of what's working, what's not working, what's risky, what's not risky, how do I mitigate these risks. Sometimes it's also as simple as just understanding, they call it prompt engineering, but essentially, how do you ask an AI tool or an AI chat model a question in a manner that enables it to really understand how far it can go in answering that question, how deep into that concept it would have to drill in order to come out with a useful answer for you. What is the context behind your question? Everything else. If you maybe just master that, then it's less you worrying about, oh, AI tools are not reliable, and you worrying about, do I have enough time to vet this, or have I vetted this thoroughly? So I see we're now having less people. People are going to sleep in the chat. I was hoping we could go through Notion as well. I think with the people that are here, because it's just us, do you want to go through it or not? If you don't, we'll just call it a day. If you do, I'm very happy and very willing to actually start going into it. It's going to be very useful. So you let me know. Also, the people that are not here have you to thank if I end up doing the Notion part of this whole session, because then they'll be able to watch it tomorrow. So if you guys say no, I mean, at least you are here. If you say yes, just know that everybody who ends up seeing it tomorrow, it would have been because you were willing to stay here to see it. So let's hear it. I should not be biting my pen. That was so childish. I wonder if somebody's gonna come and be like, "Oh, they still live? Like, how long was this thing?" Actually, why is the two people that are here also sleeping, guys? Like, it's literally. Let's see. I think we should leave the Notion for the next session. Okay, thank you very much, Smanye. I can understand if you're fatigued, guys. I really appreciate your time, though. To everybody that already is here and everybody that perhaps might watch this later, I really appreciate you guys sacrificing your time, and I hope this session was worthwhile. I will I feel like sometimes I make so many promises during these sessions, and I'm worried I might not keep them. So essentially, there's a whole list of technology tools or AI tools that I wanted to suggest to you guys. I wanted to keep it for everybody that's here. So I have noted who's here, and I will try to like prioritize you guys when I distribute it. It's also costing a lot to distribute things to like 300 people. So I'm now gonna start really prioritizing people that attend these things, and let's maybe have another session at another time. But thank you very much, guys.